Well, hey there, everyone. I'm back. Your favorite pesticide is back to practice the gift of gab at you. And today I just want to share a story of an experience I had earlier. And it was one morning last week when I was sitting out on the balcony. I had decided to grab a cup of joe. It was a beautiful morning and just go outside and sit out there for a while and just chill out in the early morning hours. Occasionally take a look up at the mountains in the distance and also play on the phone, which we all do a lot of these days, even though we probably shouldn't. But I'm sitting there playing on my phone and looking up and seeing the beautiful blue sky and the mountains in the distance. And all of a sudden I hear something. I hear honking. Now, I live in the big city, an urban area, so honking is not unusual. There's traffic everywhere, right? And it's annoying, just like sirens are annoying. But this wasn't just any kind of honking. It was a familiar honk of a bird. And that bird is the goose. In this case, it was a flock of geese. And I thought, how fun is that? We got a flock of geese flying by in an urban area. The big city. What are these geese doing in the big city? But they're flying by. And I really haven't seen a whole lot of geese flying south for the winter, but the story goes that typically geese will fly south for the winter. And they do that to avoid the cold. They go up north to breed, because that's the best place to do that. And then they fly south between September, October, and November, so that they'll have a warmer climate and they'll also be able to have access to much needed resources that they might need. So that's what I understand about geese, and how they fly south for the winter and they fly in formation and they fly in flocks. They fly together. And I counted all these geese and they weren't all together. There were actually two groups, two flocks. But all total, I counted about 19 geese flying right by my balcony, not too far off. And I thought, I wonder where they're going. Because then I realized there's something different about this. These geese are not flying south for the winter. They weren't. So even though I grabbed my phone and I snapped a couple of shots of it and I sent it out to show some people on social media that I had seen these geese fly by, I had also noticed that they were flying east. And I thought, why are they flying east? It's wintertime. They're supposed to be flying south. That's the way the story goes, right? So I posted in my social media that the geese are a little confused because they were flying east for the winter instead of south. Hello 2020. And that may not be the case, but I decided to do a little extra research and look it up and see if I could find anything about that because, it's a little unusual to me to think of it in terms of, hey, they're flying east, but hey, they're not predictable, right? No one should be predictable. Just kind of go spontaneously and do your thing, right? Maybe that's what they were doing. And one friend had sent me a notice on my social media that they were curious if there was a big body of water nearby, and of course there is. There's a big lake. And of course, birds, like geese, like to be around water, big bodies of water. So I realized that maybe there might be something to this. They might be flying south for the winter, but maybe they're taking a little detour. If they're not confused, they're taking a little detour. Why might they be doing that? So I tried to look it up online, and I didn't find a whole lot of information about why geese might fly a different direction than what they're supposed to. The migratory habits of birds. But it would indicate that some birds may detour, get themselves off course a little bit because they may want to go ahead and take a moment to feed at an available resource. And if that means not flying south and flying east, then because there's a big body of water out there, then that's what they're doing. So that's the closest explanation I could have for why geese were flying east. I've seen some kind of quote that if geese walk east and fly west, then it's going to be a very cold winter. In this case, they're flying east, so maybe we won't have an extremely cold winter, at least where I am. So, you know, take that with a grain of salt. Who knows? But that's what I noticed this week. I wanted to share that story with you. The geese flew by my area, an urban area, and they were flying east instead of south for the winter. And that's basically what I wanted to comment on, but I thought that was kind of curious and interesting and worth sharing and doing a little research on, because it was a little bit unusual when you have an expectation that the migratory habits of birds are set in stone to go this way, but they're not set in stone. You know, just like what we do each day as individuals and as human beings aren't always the same. You know, we set ourselves into a predictable habit-forming situation or situations from time to time, but it doesn't have to be that way. So we can change. And so why not birds, right? So the birds were showing me and teaching me a little lesson there to, you know, stay the course, but you don't have to. If you want to go off course and explore a little bit, why not? And I feel like maybe I've been doing a little bit of that this year, even though I'm staying put and staying the course for, you know, safety reasons. I'm not necessarily predictable all the time. And I'm trying to find things to do with myself and make some decisions about, you know, what the future holds for me as we come to a close here at the end of the year. So these geese were showing me that you know, you don't have to go in one particular direction. You can make some choices, take a detour, do a little exploration, find a little bit more of yourself in everything you do, and then move on from there. And so that sounds like a good message to me, right? And I like birds. I'm not a big bird watcher type of person, but, you know, I love hearing them outside singing away in the morning. And when I notice it, especially in an urban environment, I'm like, listen to the birdies. They're singing. How nice is that? I can hear them. It's the same thing with stars. You know, when you're in an urban area and everything's all lit up, you hardly see any stars at all. But when you're out in sort of a country area and you start seeing stars, you're like, wow, there are actually stars out there. You're reminded that other things are going on in the world beyond what you see right in front of you here and now. So I think that's a good thing to remember and take with us today as we, you know, go on with our day outside of our little coffee break. Okay? So, and I wanted to also remind you, or not remind you, but share with you as it relates to birds that I did one time, and I'll have to share a little bit more in detail in another video about my trip to the Galapagos Islands. Because in the Galapagos Islands, it is a huge area where a lot of birds migrate and go to. And that's where Darwin settled into for a while and did some research. And there is a research facility there named after him even today. But if you'll recall, if you have been privy to this information, you'll know that he studied a lot of birds out there. And I got to see a bunch of them when I went on my trip to the Galapagos. So I might share that in another video more specifically. But as I'm talking about birds and the geese flying by and flying in the wrong direction and what are they doing and all that, I'm reminded of that little trip which showed me a bunch of different types of birds that I've never seen before. And recently I also did some research on a couple of islands that are out in the far Pacific Ocean that are owned by the United States, or at least United States territory, out by Guam. A couple of little islands out there. There's nothing on them, those islands, but you know, people have gone out there on little expeditions just to explore. They're very small islands, you know, not much bigger than maybe Manhattan, you know, so you can see water on everywhere you turn. So if you're going to be deserted on an island, there you go. But there's nothing on these two islands that I researched except birds. birds like to drop by and use the island. And there are no trees or anything like that, just a lot of brush and rocks and sand and, what you have on a small island. So anyway, that's neither here nor there, but I'm just reminded of those things because it all comes down to today's topic, which is about the birds and them flying by and capturing my attention. So I'm just sharing that with you today. If you enjoyed hearing about the birds, then please give me a thumbs up. Got anything to share about birds or anything else you want to share at all, just leave them in the comment boxes below. And you can hit that subscription button and that notification bell. There's all that. And you can share it with people you know if you want to. And then we'll get back together next time right here on the coffee break. I look forward to it. Until then, y'all have a great day, okay? Bye now.